Just if he's gonna sit there, right?
What? We'll get rolling. I'll introduce you. I'll introduce you once we get
Well-
rolling. Okay? I'm going to call to order the Planning Commission meeting for Tuesday, November 15th, 2022. It is now 5:05. Would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Saparian,
Here.
Mr. Olive,
Here.
Mr. Breezlar,
Here.
Mr. Orbitz, Chairman Winkowski,
Here. Call for a motion to approve the October 18th, 2022 regular meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second. Hearing a motion and a second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, the minutes of the 2002 October 18th regular meeting minutes are hereby approved. The only matter before us today is a zoning change, Z 814-22. Zoning change from A1 Agricultural District to C1 Commercial Industrial District on the properties described as 4315 Corduroy Road, parcel number 44-11277, and 4701 Corduroy Road, parcel number 44-10204. A zoning change from A1 Agricultural District to Advanced Manufacturing District on the property described as 4713 Corduroy Road, parcel number 44-10114. And a zoning change from mixed use A1 Agricultural District and C1 Commercial Industrial District to Advanced Manufacturing District on a portion of the property described as 700 North Wind Road, parcel number 44-00984. This zoning change is being initiated by the city of Oregon, and has been referred to the Planning Commission by City Council. As you can see, our panel is 4 tonight. Our normal panel is 5 in order to get approval of the proposal. The applicants will be required to get 3 yes votes. If they don't get 3 yes votes, then it is disapproved and it goes to council. Either way, no matter what the outcome of our vote is, it goes to council. If we approve it, and it would be either a 4-0 or a 3-1 vote, it would go to council. My understanding, that date has already been set.
December 19th.
December 19th in council chambers will be the hearing for that, the open meeting. If it is approved here, council is only required to approve it by passage of a simple majority, 4-3. If it is disapproved here or does not receive the 3 votes, then a supermajority, which I believe is 5-2 or 6-1.
It would be 6.
6-1.
It's actually not a super majority, it's 75%, and 75% to achieve that, you would need 6.
So it would be required a 6-1 vote at least a six approved votes for council to then pass it. So there's 2 steps, our step tonight, and then the step on December 19th for council. Our step, the December 19th council meeting is dependent upon what we do tonight. So once we have Mr. Mazur introduce the topic and give the reasons why the city is doing this, we may have some questions for him. Certainly you all will be invited up to the podium. If you come up to the podium, identify yourself and where you live and give us your reasons, yay or nay, on what we're doing or what they've proposed. The only thing we ask, we've got a room full of people. Everyone has an opinion. I'm not going to stop people from talking, but I would hope that you would not be repetitive of the person before you. Just to let you know who we are, other than the mayor, the other 3 of us are volunteers for this position, so we're not doing this out of spite or in favor of the city in any way. We are independent citizens chosen by the mayor, but on this board and given our time to try to better the city of Oregon. Okay. I'm going to introduce Mr. Joel Mazer. If you are not familiar with him, he is our new city administrator within the last month or two. He comes from by way of Napoleon. He has moved. I think you closed on a house sometime last week.
I did, yeah.
And he's now an Oregon resident. So I would hope that we would give him the time and attention to that. I think he's already done a great job with getting to know some of the people. If you don't know him, obviously walk up to him and introduce yourself to him. He's got a quick learner. So, Mr. Mazer, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and looking forward to answering any questions too after this. So I'll just get right into it. If you see on the screen, there are 4 parcels that are that the city has initiated the zoning change for. 2 of them are owned by the Economic Development Foundation, and 2 of them are owned by private residents. The first thing I wanted to point out were the 2 parcels. There's one all the way to the west, all the way to the left of the screen here. That one is proposed to be a commercial and a CI, commercial industrial property, and that fits the zoning of the industrial property around it right now. So the green designates the agricultural designation, and the CI is obviously commercial industrial, so fits with the zoning. The city did have a new zoning designation created called advanced manufacturing. And I believe the intent of that is to, going forward basis, try to utilize that as much as possible, because the advanced manufacturing designation is a little bit more restrictive for new industry. And I'll get into that in a second in the other 2 parcels to the east. But it adds for a softer look, softer feel to, there's some design standards incorporated in it, so it's not as, doesn't look like a bunch of smokestacks everywhere. So we have modernized looking buildings that look and feel a lot softer than what what a refinery would look like. So that is owned by the Economic Development Foundation. Alec is not here. He's the executive director. But he is supportive of this as the executive director of the foundation. They are actually seeking, and putting together requests for information, RFIs. If you haven't heard that term before, that is economic development term for when leads come in from either the state of Ohio or other sources, or specific site selectors. They request information about specific sites. And what they're looking for is utilities and infrastructure that serve those sites. And they're also looking for zoning is a big piece of this too. So they want to ensure that the properties are zoned appropriately for what they want the use to be. So that's one thing. So I just wanted to touch on that 1 parcel all the way to the west, and the reason why CI is used because it fits the rest of the, thank you, Paul. Or Jim. It's your Paul. It fits the rest of the surrounding Cedar Point development area. And to zone it anything different, what we call that is spot zoning. Spot zoning in the zoning industry is really kind of frowned upon. You want to have your same uses kind of attached to each other, so they're not, so things aren't disjointed. And that's, and Jim will back me up on that, but that's just something that is generally frowned upon. Not that it's out of question, not that it doesn't happen in other places, but because it certainly does from time to time, but you always want to try to keep things uniform across the board. So that's the parcel to the west. Then if you go to in the middle, there's a very narrow property. We're also proposing for that property to be CI as well, again, because it kind of fits that designation. And then the other parcel next to that, along with the other OEDF parcel, the two parcels combined that one is on Corduroy and one is on Wynn Road, would be the new advanced manufacturing designation. And that would have the, the softer feel, softer look of what an industry, modern industry looks like. So those designations, that's the request for a couple of reasons. And I know I'm new here, but one of the items here is that I believe that this has always been the plan. This has always been in the works to sort of migrate the industrial area of the city and build out here. The road to the north has been built, is completed. And you'll see on that blue parcel all the way on the northern side actually has a retention pond already built on it. That was part of the road construction and infrastructure construction. Water lines, sewer lines were built to accommodate industry in this area already. So the investment's been made by the city. So that's why I say it's always been in the plans. The other thing I'll say is that, and I already touched on it, is that the site selectors that, and site selectors are consultants that go out and try to find properties for clients, and their clients being specific industries. The site selectors go out and they try to locate, sites that are suitable for their clients. And they're always asking one of the main questions that they ask is, what is it zoned? What is in your master plan? And is there a desire to change the zoning to fit their needs and what their desires are? So if we're ahead of the game, because this is a 60 to 90-day process, if we're ahead of the game, that cuts down a lot on their time. They find that to be favorable in their selection process. So the other thing is we're getting ahead of the game. The last thing I'll mention is that zoning this area all the way up to Wynn Road right now has always been in the citywide master plan, the 2025 comprehensive plan that was published about 17 or 18 years ago. So it's always been in the plan that was the intention was that this area was going to slowly develop as industrial. So that's all I have. The one last minor piece I believe that I wanted to bring up was Tina, if you could use the cursor to outline the wooded lot and the middle parcel. You know what I'm talking about? If you go straight north, right there.
Yeah.
So there is a wooded lot right there. Right now, that wooded lot, and this is for everybody's edification, is that it is on a national register for as a wetland, as a wooded wetland. However, that's the matter before the Planning Commission is a zoning matter, not a policy matter on what to do with wetlands. That's one thing. Agricultural zoning, though, also because it currently is agricultural zoning, would allow an easier path for mitigation of wetlands if somebody wanted to mitigate those wetlands. So it's actually more restrictive to mitigate wetlands if it's zoned industrial. And let's see, the last thing is if you could go to the overall map of the entire city zoning map.
Is that it?
No, that's not it. That's the master plan.
Okay.
That was it. That's it. That's a future land use.
That's a future land use map. That's not the current zoning map. That's in the.
Correct. Yeah, that's future land use.
No, that's okay.
Well, the intended use was commercial.
Yeah.
industrial.
Yeah, that's the map that's in the master plan, and that kind of spells out, and you can see it delineated on Wynn Road if you zoom in on it. That the intention was that industrial land was always going to migrate towards that direction. So, other than that, that's really all I have. So the request is to approve of the changes of zoning of those parcels as recommended. Be happy to take any questions.
Hold on, it's for us. Sorry. Tina, you need to help me here. On this one, just so I'm clear. The first one is the one furthest on the right, says 700 right there. Parcel Z 81422, right?
Yep.
We're asking that that one changes from industrial,
No. It's ag.
is agricultural right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Working.
You gotta,
Yeah.
you gotta hold it.
There it is. This one right here is the one I'm talking about.
Right.
That one is agricultural right now.
Correct.
We're
Yes.
asking for that one to go to
Advanced manufacturing.
advanced manufacturing.
Correct.
For those of you that don't know about those fancy terms, we have heavy industrial, commercial, advanced manufacturing. For our,
You have CI, which is commercial industrial. It's a combination.
is a combination. So there are certain restrictions and certain things that can go in CI. And then if you go down to advanced manufacturing, that is a light manufacturing district. It's the new district that council just put in probably within the last 6 months or 8 months. It is a,
Less restrictive,
it's intended to be a box.
less invasive.
Box warehouses with manufacturing inside. So the outside exposure is going to be limited if anything.
Intended to be more aesthetically pleasing.
So I try to talk as simple as I can, so I understand it. So if everybody else can understand it. All right, this one. Agricultural now to advanced manufacturing,
Correct.
okay? This one,
That would go to CI.
Agricultural to CI.
okay, that one will go to CI, so it'll be a little heavier than the advanced manufacturing, and it has the wetlands back here.
Correct.
Correct.
This one from agricultural to CI.
Correct.
Correct.
Yes, the one to the west,
The
the
one way on
small
the
square.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. So that's what the topic of tonight is. This
Yep.
one and this one to commercial industrial. These two to advanced manufacturing.
Correct.
And Scott, if I could, just the orange is already CI, zone CI.
Okay,
So, you know,
so if this one and this one are CI, they would link up with.
Correct.
All 8 of
Okay.
these or 9 of these.
Correct.
Which are already commercial industrial.
Correct.
Okay. And then obviously if we go to the north, everything up here is commercial industrial.
That's correct.
So it's just a matter of how far down we come, and you can even see down here, there is some commercial industrial, which would be to the west and the south of what we're talking about. So that goes into near Lallendorf even, and then goes all the way through off into Lallendorf and almost to the water tower.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Mayor,
and for advanced manufacturing, the aesthetic looks of the buildings would resemble those, if you're familiar with driving on I-70 or the I-75, where the old Jeep plant was, where they built the Dana building, and I don't remember, what's the other building there? All right, though it will resemble the look of those, that's what we patterned our advanced manufacturing building standards from.
any other comments from the panel?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, on that one parcel, let's see what the number is. 4713 Corduroy. There's a house on that property now?
Correct.
What's gonna happen to that house then?
That's a great question, and thank you for bringing that up because that's a point that I didn't touch on. Any use that's currently being, any use that the property has now will still be able to be used as that. So it's used agricultural, residential, whatever it is, will still be able to be used. So whoever the residents are will still live there. They are aware of this zoning change. We've made the 2 owners of those middle parcels aware of this. And so they know that they can still farm those properties for as long as they want. And actually, as long as their properties are in the ag districts, they'll still stay, the tax base for the property taxes will still stay as agricultural use. So the houses will stay. It's up to, I believe, well, it'd be up to the landowner when they sell. It's just any new development on that property, new development has to conform to the uses that are allowable under the new designation.
And so the person that owns that property still will have opportunity to sell that property as a residence.
Yes, if they desired to sell it to anybody they wanted to, they could sell it to a person that would continue the use of a residence. They would be allowed to do that. That's where the 2-year period comes in. If the use discontinues for 2 years, then it's not allowed, okay?
And the owner is in consensus with this project?
Yeah, yes, as far as I understand, the owners are aware of this, and we made all the owners aware of this.
We
I
made
didn't
the owners-
directly do this, but my understanding is they were made aware, and they were good with bringing this to council or to planning
Mr.
commission.
Chairman,
Mayor?
I think it's fair to say that at the time, we were trying to get options with them, but that the owners were not in objection.
Oh, that is correct. One
They're not in
owner, is very much in favor of this
Yes.
and wants to move this forward.
Thank you.
But I don't want to speak for them.
I'm going to open up the floor for any of the public. If you would like to come up to the podium, identify yourself, and if you have any questions for either Mr. Mazer or any of the panel regarding this or any statements, you are more than welcome. You don't have to.
No.
Thank you, appreciate it.
State your name though. and-
Name and address.
Marty Zazeski, 4919 Porter Road. Right there in the corner, is Dan Zazeski's old house. Anyways, what the, excuse me, what are we supposed to do? Right now, living in that corner right now, we got trucks constantly booming, hitting bumps in the road, waking us up. We got building going up, we got noise over here. It was, when we bought the house, it was originally supposed to be for my dad's retirement. And now it's going completely commercial. One, it's enough for you people that understand that somewhere these people gotta live. We got people on Wynn Road that are building new houses. And now they're walking into this, knowing that there's gonna be a factory in their front yard. And then also, I like whoever's on the mailing department on this has gotta get fired, because some people got notices and I didn't get a notice, and I'm right there right there on the corner of it. This is, now, how the hell are we supposed to sell a house? Oh, by the way, if we decide to sell this house, there's gonna be a factory right here. What are we gonna do, take 75 grand for the house now that it was worth 350 grand before? I'm sure nobody's gonna wanna move in there at all. Who's gonna wanna stay there? What the hell is Oregon? It's waterways. People go there for their, for fun. There's fishing and all this stuff. No, we're commercial now. We're building everything. We're gonna destroy everybody's livelihoods and just put in factories for you guys to make money off of. This, enough is enough. Come on. We had a farm field next to us that we could walk next door and get tomatoes and corn and all this stuff. And now there's gonna be a pretty building out there. What the? I'm flabbergasted. I don't even know what to say anymore. Do we have any say in the matter whatsoever? I'm asking a question. Do we have any say in the matter?
We do right now.
I say absolutely 100% no. And you guys ought to be ashamed of yourselves for destroying, these are fairly new houses here. The gentleman back there is building a house on Wynn Road. I'm sure he spent quite a lot of money on that house. Think he wanted to move here as his final home and before retirement, he's gonna wanna see a factory going in his front yard? I mean, come on, people, do any of you guys live in this neighborhood?
Mr. Chairman,
Mayor?
I actually live in Eagles Landing, which is close to that, but
Yeah, close.
if, I would like to try to address some of the things you said. The master plan that we had went into effect almost 20 years ago, and it always called for that property to be industrial developed property. So people that built their house there should have known that that was the intent. If there's open property, like we call it the Marge Steel property that the city of Oregon purchased, that we're looking for the advanced manufacturing zoning on. We purchased that with that intent to develop that property. If you think that anyone would have purchased that property to build a subdivision or a residential property in that location, that was certainly not going to happen. It adjoined the industrial property to the rear. Always the intent was for that. We always made that well known as we could, even when we come to purchase it. And as you say, are we looking for revenue for the city? We always are. We certainly are. Just like we're slowly evolving into a staffed fire department, which will cost a lot of money. We have two options: raise taxes or try to find other sources to pay for the services that we have. So it has always been commonly thought of, this is our industrial area, and those parcels were always believed to be, when they developed, would be developed commercial, industrial, or industrial. So that's why we had people looking at those parcels, people that looked at the Marge Steel property, the first one that comes on out to Wynn Road. We're always looking at it for commercial, industrial projects or industrial projects. So that was always the intent. So, and it's just like we have people believing they bought property approaching State Route 2 and wondered why retail was going up on Route 2 when it was always farm field. And I believe you could make the case that common sense would tell you the property on Navarre Avenue, State Route 2, was not going to develop as residential parcels. It would go as retail. Much the same, we would believe, adjoining our industrial park and the refinery, the property surrounding it would most likely develop as industrial property.
Say, Rick, I don't mean to interrupt.
You could, no, it's just that we're here to try to
You guys have increased the commercial part of this so much that you cannot control the roads. Corduroy Road just saw its fatality accident on the way over.
I know I was caught in the traffic.
So we can't we don't have enough road space to put these trucks coming in and out all this time on there now. I mean, right now the house shakes as the trucks are coming by, the empty trucks, the booming in the middle of the night, the Jake brakes, that supposedly there's a code for it, that nobody monitors. The drag racing up and down Corduroy and Wynn Road is out of hand. You guys can't even set an officer out there to set it up on there. But the roads, the semis going by every single day, tying up that corners, causing accidents because they can't see around it. They have to back up to do this one. This semi's going this way. It's a single lane road. How much?
Oh.
There's way too much traffic on that road right now for it.
Unfortunately, it's developed as the truck route, and it has been since prior to the city developing as incorporating as a city. So it is a dedicated truck route. We cannot take that away. So that is the truck route going into our industrial area, and that's the way it is. We do we hold these meetings to try to make the impact of the area as good as possible. But we do have to do a balancing act. People ask for the income of the city to take care of their city services. And we do everything that we can to provide the services, but we have to pay for them. So this is our income source. You're right, it is. I see people shaking their head, yes or no. They know we want money. We do need to raise our revenues so to provide for the new incoming services that we're providing. Because right now we're going to be falling short. If something happens to either the refinery, which we had a real risk of losing the one refinery, we would be in a real deficit situation. So we're trying to be ahead of the curve. We certainly are.
What are we supposed to do that our house is in there? What are we supposed to do? Just live there right in the middle of this, onto this, and not have to worry? I mean, I got so much noise during the summertime. I can't open up my windows because of that power plant or whatever, that white building with the props in there that cool the plant down. It's so loud I can't even sleep at night. So every night, no matter what, it has to be air conditioner on or the windows closed all the time because of this. And the booming from the trucks going by, you can't sleep because it wakes you up in the middle of the night, sets off the alarm, the sensitivity. So we had to turn those down on the cars. I mean, the road is a disaster for one, and you guys can't even take care of that. Now you're gonna be putting more and more truck traffic on it?
I don't know that the road is a
Mr.
disaster.
Roman, maybe you can address the road issue there, whether or not
Yeah, and
it'll ever be
It's not
done.
a disaster, but it's.
And I don't want to take away from the time but I think it's appropriate to make a note of something. The city did receive an EDA grant, a federal EDA grant so Parkway Road and Blue Heron Drive is a current existing industrial park, and Windscape is the same. And we received a grant to connect the two roads. So that over the last year, that construction was a road that connects it. So these properties that are being asked to be rezoned front on that new road, that will be the path for trucks going to these properties. Now, that's not take away from trucks that are going to still use corduroy. They still will. And I think the Jake brake is an enforcement issue. It's difficult. If there's an issue with, Corduroy Road was the concrete road with joints, and we've overlaid it a few times, and that's something we can always keep track of. Wynn Road is still a truck route as well, just like the mayor mentioned corduroy is. But we try to get trucks to stop using those roads. One way was building a new road that these other properties front on and would use for their truck traffic. So that I'm just wanted to make a note that if anybody saw the construction going on in the last year, that's what it was. It was connecting two existing industrial parks. That's all.
Let me ask your opinion on this. I know at one time, Lallendorf was the truck route, probably 15 years ago.
Well,
That changed, from my understanding, that changed to Wynn Road. We anticipate that it will change out to, what's the next one? Stadium.
That's not true.
Well, let me say this.
Wynn was always the truck route.
Wynn was.
Always.
And just, I'll tell.
Lallendorf was available for truck traffic at some point in
Well,
time.
well,
since
Scott-
I've been living off of
Scott,
Lallendorf.
it's possible that trucks used it. I'm just saying, Wynn Road's composition is literally 15, 18 inches of asphalt. It's super thick. It's built for trucks. Lallendorf on the other side of the park is about 6, 8 inches.
No,
It's not, it was never meant. So it's possible that, trucks used it. I know it was weight restricted because it's not made for trucks. So the problem with Wynn being a truck route, and it's been that way for a while, is the question is, well, if you want a new truck route, where do you put it? I guarantee you, it's not just designating a road. You're rebuilding a road somewhere else, and there's definitely expense. I'm not saying not to do it. I'm just saying it's built for that. Wynn Road is used for the trucks heading east on Route 2, okay? All the Michigan traffic, we route to Front, to Millard, to Cedar Point.
Sure.
And, Marathon has a lot of trucks that will use Lallendorf to Seaman, but they're going north. A lot of them are going to Michigan. So we try to get as many trucks as possible, but I know for this industrial area, and again, you had two pre-existing industrial parks. The new road was to accommodate this development, if there is development. That's all.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Someone else?
Yeah, I'm Jim Sally, I live at
You-
510, don't talk loud enough, 510 North Wind. And what I'd like to know is, where the property's coming up on Wind Road heading south, right up to Norm Nickerson's property, all right?
Hmm.
And you guys just said that you already made all the arrangements back there for sewers. But that must be just right out in front on Wind. So what I'm saying is you put a plant or business right there south of this property. What are you gonna do for sewers though?
It
I
would-
mean, the only thing I'm saying, nothing was ever said about doing anything with sewers ahead of time. So you got 5 new homes there
Yeah.
at $25,000 to $30,000 a piece for leach fields. And I know when if they put a sewer in, where are you gonna stop? You're gonna stop right there at the edge of the far south and stop the sewers right there? Or would you continue them down Wind Road?
we-
So you continue them down Wind Road, what do you give the person? 2 years to buy into it or put it on your taxes? You gotta tap into it. Now you got 5 houses, 5 new ones in the last 3 years that spent that kind of money on leach fields.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, someone just said that you guys are all set up for the sewers for all this project, but you don't have them run yet. You're set up to
No,
do it.
Mr. President.
Okay.
And I
You'll
could,
answer your
Mr. Seeley, and if I could, so when we did the new road, that included sanitary sewer with storm drainage and water line. So we looped the water line. There's a detention area that's a regional detention area, and we ran sewers. Now, Windscape, there is a sewer, we put in a 15-inch sanitary sewer along the frontage of Windscape, and then it turns west to follow this new road. If residents to the south on Wind petition for sewer, they could. We're not out to push it. We're not out to, if we did anything there, you could do it as a cash to tap where people aren't required to tie in unless they have a problem. So if you have a new septic, you would,
What I'm saying is where the property's gonna end south, you're not gonna run that sewer farther.
No,
You're
we're-
gonna- The only way you'd run it farther if all those residents just spent all that money, say, yeah, we'll all tap into it.
if they would, no, we have no plans to extend the sewer other than what we've done along that new road that we connect the 2 industrial parks. That's all we've done there. If residents, like such as yourself, wishes to get sewer and they petition for it, well, then council would consider that, view it as a public project. Anything that develops in the area that we're zoning, they're gonna get their sewer off the new sewer that we ran on that new road, period. They're not gonna push the need for a sewer downwind. You know what I'm saying? We have no plan to run a sewer downwind. So if it's a concern of you have the investment of a new septic, that's fine. That can remain.
And then the only other thing is, you're talking about the truck route on Wind. And I know Mike drives it every day. The berm is gone. On the ditch side, anybody that would go off that road afoot, not paying attention,
Well,
and get their wheel off there.
Yeah,
You're gonna end up in the ditch.
yep, that's a
And
good point.
That road is just caving in there, so.
Yep, that's a good point.
That's what I'm saying about sewers, because if you did do that,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to do
Yep,
something. All the
yep,
telephone
yep,
poles don't
yep.
have nothing no more.
Yep.
And the berm's gone, both sides.
So let me point this out, if I could. When the city bought the Marge Steel property and we were doing our planning, we did retain more right-of-way so that that ditch can be moved further from the road, okay? The idea is, and again, we have no project, but if a project comes along, the idea is we're gonna, whoever that is, it would be to relocate that ditch further from the road. And it would be for that, just like what we did to the north. We did the exact same thing. We relocated it was way worse north of Cedar Point Road, and we got a grant and we partnered with BP Husky and we moved the ditch. Right, right. And so we obtained, so since we own the Marge Steel property, we didn't want to have to be in a begging mode to buy that right of way later on from somebody. So we acquired the right of way we need to relocate. Our plan is to relocate that ditch. It's just, with all the priorities of drainage that, and I get it, I'm not saying it's not a priority, but I'm just saying it's in our plan to relocate that ditch someday. But it wasn't, right, as of right now, we're not planning to extend the sewer. I can tell you, in other areas where you have a ditch or a storm sewer, some other utility in the way, when you run sewers, you would get sanitary sewer easements. So you'd have to get it on your side, which is where a lot of the properties are. That's what you would do. So it doesn't mean you couldn't extend the sewer because there's no space. You would just get easements, and it's more difficult to do that. We don't have a plan of extending that sewer unless the people ask for it.
What about doing the road though, as far as the berm, like right now?
Yeah, we could
it's narrow.
yeah.
I mean, how are you gonna do that on the ditch side?
Yeah, it's hard. It's extremely hard, and I think what we've done on future paving projects, one thing we wanted to get from the EDA grant was more money to pave Wynn. We didn't get it. And so we know we got to repave Wynn. We will get a grant to pave that section of Wynn and Corduroy. We applied for a new tip grant. We did get it. It's 500 grand. We won't get it for 2 years, but when we pave it, the idea is to move that road a little bit to the east, like 1 or 2 feet. See what I'm saying? And then what the old road becomes the berm. You know what I'm saying? So you just shift the alignment just 2 feet to the east is what you do. That's how you would do that.
Yep.
Sorry, they like your name and
Are we
address.
picking, well, here's my question. We record these meetings and there's people online that can watch these meetings. My question is whether or not they pick that up. And I'm sure you did have a loud voice, but if you could come up and be close enough to the mic so that they can pick that up on the mic, we would appreciate it.
Phil at the lectern, he said, just come up to the.
Name is Phil Dominic, 770 North Wind. My question to you is, you said there's no extension, sewers are not planned on Wind Road? Why has my front yard been marked twice this year already for sewers? Talking to the excavating, the people doing it, the plan was to extend the sewers a quarter mile down the street of Wind Road.
We
It
did,
was laid out twice.
yeah, we did. We tried to get more grant dollars to see if we could extend both the water and the sewer, and that got turned down by the
So there
EPA.
was a plan.
It was in terms of if we could get grant dollars, yes. But that's something where if that happened, the city would be paying for the sewer. It wouldn't be an assessed price. So I'm just saying there's a difference.
We'd be forced to tie into it.
Well, usually just in general, and this isn't, the mayor can correct me if I'm wrong, the last 15, 20 years, when we do sewers, if we put something in, we would do it as a cash to tap, meaning you would only tie in if you needed to tie in. That's what we do later. Okay?
And Phil, wait, I'll expand on that. Being that if that sewer was extended to put your local line in, you could petition for it, and then you'd be only paying for the local line to an existing sewer, which would be much more cost effective for you. So it would be available if you chose to act on it.
And when we were looking at, so when we obtained the EDA grant and we got the bids for the road, we came under the grant amount. So then we're like, well, wait a minute, could we get more of the grant money if we do this, or we do that? Paving Wynn was one of the ideas. So, but even that extension of water and sewer, it wasn't even to get down to where a lot of your properties are. It wasn't to go all the way to Corduroy. I'm just saying. But, and they probably oopsed everything, to make sure that you covered things. But I'm saying right now, we have no plan to extend it all the way to Corduroy.
I think there was another one back there, at least one more. Sir?
I'm Rocky Rassenbuehler. I live right at the edge of that 4315, that 4309 Corduroy. That's going to be the CI zoning.
That's correct.
Okay, you kind of elaborated on the other one, what the buildings could look like. What would they look like in the CI, or what can they put in there?
Well, I can tell you in general, the Fresenius are buildings that are already there in the CI, and the hope is you'd have something very similar to that. But I'll let Jim elaborate.
Well, yeah, sorry, I should know that. CI, we have M1, M2, which is our light and heavy industrial. we have CI, which has further restrictions. So CI allows, the uses allow for commercial, just what it is, commercial industrial. It has limitations on heavy industrial. You have to be so far away from, you have to be 500 feet away from any residential structure and to put in any heavy industrial. So most likely where there's homes over there, that would be inside a building. If there, it'd be warehousing, it'd be that sort of thing.
But can they build right on the property line or? do they have to have a
No,
buffer?
no, there is a, and
Setback.
there's a required 50-foot landscaping buffer that's between any residential and any industrial.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
My name's Julie Lejanowski and I live at 724 North Wind Road. And from what I understand, my house is right next to your advanced manufacturing. And I just want to let you know that I am totally against it. I don't want anything other than a cornfield next to my house, maybe another house. But I had no idea about any of this when I bought my house 12 years ago. It wasn't disclosed to me when we bought the house. I never knew anything like that was going on. But I also wanted to know if you plan on buying anybody out of these houses, or we're just gonna have to live with what you're gonna do.
Mayor, you want to address that?
There's no plan for the city buying any persons out. Sometimes when businesses come in and if they need additional property, they may choose to purchase properties, but
So,
there is no plan for that, no.
so who's gonna wanna buy my house right next door to manufacturing? Who's gonna wanna spend what my house is worth, knowing that there's manufacturing right outside your kitchen window? Would you?
It depends. If I was to purchase that house, maybe even when you did, I would look at the property and try to put in my mind what would likely happen to the property. We run into that all the time in the city. People purchase houses next to vacant fields and think there'll always be a vacant field.
Oh, and I was
That's-
supposed to know all this before I bought my house?
People purchase property, like I said, next to vacant property, and they should be somewhat concerned, wondering what would likely go in. If I were to purchase that and see the property where it's located next to and surrounded industrial area and surrounding a totally industrial area, I would assume if it would develop, it would likely develop as industrial property. It wouldn't be developed as a subdivision.
And
So,
why
yeah,
would that be? Why not a subdivision rather than
because
manufacturing?
a person,
That would
that-
be my first guess, even with these houses just being built on Wind Road, North Wind Road. These 5 new houses that just went up. I would think that that cornfield would have been a subdivision. How am I supposed to know that it's gonna be manufacturing down the road? Was never disclosed to me when I bought my house.
when you did buy your house, you said it was 12 years ago, 20 years ago, we had the master plan of the city that showed if that would develop, it would develop as industrial property.
And
It's,
how am I supposed to know that?
people, when they purchase property, they would want to likely look at any documents that are out there to see what likely could happen next to them. So when people buy property, they do take risk if there's undeveloped property around them, because there's the mystique around what will that be. The belief that property will remain a farm field for eternity isn't reality. If you would go back in the city of Oregon, I've lived here since 1962, and the house I grew up in was surrounded by residential or agricultural property. And now it's surrounded by houses and,
I'd much
other
rather
stuff.
have houses than manufacturing.
depending on where you purchase a property, what property is next to you and what that property is adjoining. Like say if you
It's
you
on
look at it, it
cornfield
would,
Other than Phil and Chris.
it would then likely develop as the industrial, I'm saying in the industrial area, and property
I
will
would have thought
develop.
it would be more houses. So I guess.
I
the
can't, I
houses
can't
are-
argue that would be your,
Well, I think
what you
it's
would
all-
believe,
I
but
think it's all a bunch of BS and I don't like it at all.
Well, I just wanted to note that when we mentioned the future land use plan, which we've had for some time, when was the divide, okay, between industrial and residential? So for those that bought new lots on the east side, I can tell you the future land use plan had that area listed as residential. On the west side, it was listed industrial. Windscape has been there, I believe, Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, since the 80s. It has a road.
87.
87, so it has a road that dead ends looking south into that Marge Steel property, as if it would get extended someday. And just like what Parkway Road, the Cedar Point Development Park had a road heading east, dead ending as if it would get extended someday. Well, that's what we did. That was part of the EDA grant. So, and I'm not to take away from who does the research. I know it's hard. A lot of people don't know any better, but those plans were in place and wind has always been the divide. So just thought I'd make a note.
Yeah, Robert Grohl, I live at 4560 Corduroy, which I would be on the south side of that. There's a big difference between 20 years and always. I've been there for 45 years, so it hasn't always been set for commercial. That's neither there. So is there gonna be some kind of a setback? Or there's gonna be a hill or something put in, or off of Corduroy? I mean, are they gonna build right out to Corduroy, or?
We can have Mr. Gilmore say what our buffer requirements are and,
Buffering requirements up against residential.
Well, the buffering requirements up against residential is 50 foot. And it really is how
50 foot's
that's,
almost on, next to the road, so. Excuse me.
that's okay. It depends on what's going in there. That may be, it may be all green space. It may be a hill, it may be some parking in there. Right now, we have a detention retention pond in there, correct?
Well, he's
No,
on
he's on the other
Corduroy
end.
and he's.
Oh,
in
off of
residential.
Corduroy, I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's,
Right, and we have a 100-foot setback from the center line of the road. I misunderstood, I'm sorry.
So there is, okay.
There's a 100-foot setback from the center line of the road.
Mr. Chairman, Bob, usually what we do is when they come before us, we'll ask for the trees or shrubbery or something to also
Buffer.
be placed in that,
Some kind of a break.
in that easement. Yeah, some kind of a break.
Mr. Chair? Oh, sorry, go ahead, please.
no, go ahead.
William Heflin, 4918 Corduroy Road. First off, I'm very much against this rezoning. The advanced manufacturing that was passed March 28th is a great idea. I don't know that everything delineated and spelled out in there is very precise or gives the amount of control that people think it does. Literally, the definition of advanced manufacturing in the code is a use that involves computer technology, robotics, or other innovation to improve a product or process. That can be applied to just about every industry, light, medium, or heavy. I know certain things are prohibited, but that's a very narrow list of prohibited activities. These are big buildings, 60 feet tall potentially with a 10-foot parapet to cover up HVAC equipment. 70 feet, like I said, is tall when you're comparing it to a residential house that tops out at about 20 or 30 feet. I don't want to stare at this. I'm right across from the parcel that is 4713. We say we have it's been said that there's a master plan from 17 to 18 years ago. Maybe the time is now to revise it, to actually figure out how to put a buffer in between what is been developed and claimed by landowners and what is not nailed down. There's no reason that those parcels can't be maintained in agriculture. Mayor Safarian says, well, farm fields won't always be farm fields, but how do we feed our population if we don't have farm fields? So there's going to have to be farm fields somewhere. It doesn't have to be a farm field and it doesn't have to be industry. It could be parkland. That could be the buffer between CI and residential. You don't need advanced manufacturing as the buffer. There's been a lot of talk about how do we pay for services? Can we raise taxes or get more commercial? Yeah, we can raise taxes. We can start being like Walbridge and stop giving full credit to people working outside of Oregon. Walbridge gives you 1.5% credit on your income taxes that you pay to another municipality, but you still have to pay up to 1% to Walbridge. That could be done in Oregon. I pay 2.25% to Oregon. I work for Wood County Parks. I don't pay any taxes to any other municipality. And I don't begrudge that because I appreciate Oregon services and the quality of life to live here. We say, or you guys say, that the master plan is available and that any potential house buyer should be looking at it. All last week I tried to find it on our website and I can't find it. I searched a couple different ways. I could not find the master plan. Seeing it tonight was the first time I've seen it. I've lived at my house for 10 years. I enjoy it. I'm neighbors with Marty, and Marty's right. There is a bump between his house and my house that the semis, the big van trucks hit, and it sounds like a collision every time they hit it.
We can look at that as well.
I would appreciate it.
Regardless.
And Wynn Road between Seaman and Cedar Point, not quite a disaster, but it's one of the worst roads in Oregon as far as surface quality.
That's the grant.
One of my questions that remain, and maybe you can answer it, maybe you can't, is there any enforceability to having the trucks only entering on that new road that you built off of Blue Heron Drive? Or are there potentially going to be driveways off of Wynn and off of Corduroy that will be new driveways?
The intention, if I could speak.
I'm asking about enforceability, not intention.
Well, the reviews go through my office as to where they access a road. Okay.
Okay.
We built that road for those properties that are being asked to be rezoned. So for what it's worth.
And if you say they have to use Blue Heron Drive,
Yep.
do they have to use it?
Yeah. Now, is it a question, do they need a road out to Corduroy? It could be. Fire department may say they want another access. So
Okay.
I'm not gonna, sugarcoat it. I'm just saying, but that road was built for those properties. That was built to be their frontage.
Okay. As has been mentioned, currently the intersection of Corduroy and Wynn is a very dangerous intersection and does not seem to be built for semi-traffic in its current configuration. Semis going eastbound on Corduroy, turning southbound on Wynn, often come into the northbound lane of Wynn to make their turns. And that is an unsafe situation. Also in the zoning definition of advanced manufacturing, the light levels are too high. Has 0.3 candle power or whatever it is for the boundary or the edge of the development and residential. That's about 3 times brighter than the brightest full moon you've ever seen. The brightest full moon you've ever seen, you can see shadows. And that's allowed to come right up to the edge of a residential property. It's 0.03. Okay, I can already see lights from businesses on Cedar Point Road that allow me to cast shadows on the side of my house. We don't need more light out there. There is nothing in the zoning about smell or sound. There's no measurements prohibiting any kind of sound level or any kind of smells that might escape from advanced manufacturing. At least that I could find. I printed it out from the codes. So I could not find that anywhere in there, just light levels. And I don't agree with the light levels that are permitted to be next to residential. Like I said, it isn't an either or choice. It may not be agricultural forever. It doesn't have to be advanced manufacturing. It doesn't have to be commercial industrial. The buffer between commercial and industrial and residential can be something else. It can be a passive park. It can be parkland. There's already a wetland on site, and we can talk about wetland mitigation. You destroy a wetland, you will never create the same wetland somewhere else. It's not a true mitigation. Species are lost, plants are lost, biodiversity is lost, and it won't be regained. So if you're going to move forward with this, I would expect that the whole Save the Wetlands campaign is going to restart again. And there were plenty of people in Oregon that were furious about that just last year and the year before. Thank you.
Mr. Chair. One thing, and I do understand everybody's concerns, and I get it. Just looking out from the global perspective of the city, one point I wanted to make was, if not here, then where, if at all, will Oregon develop industrial property in the future? So there's other places that can be developed for industrial use, but if the town's gonna grow and the tax base is gonna grow and the, water and sewer customers to help sustain ourselves financially, this really is the only logical next phase, next place for this place to have industrial land growth. I just wanted to point that out because there's, you can point to other areas, but really this is, the investment's already been made. I don't believe, from what I've researched so far, that the city's been really shy about it. It's been really open, applying for federal grants to get this from EDA, the Economic Development Administration from the federal government. This is something that's been in the works for some time. So I know I'm new to this position, but this is what I see as the future vision that I'm walking into, and that's why I do stand behind the recommendation to move forward with the rezoning of these parcels as presented.
Hi, I'm Joanne Sherry, and I live at 505 North Wind Road. I only have 2 questions, and maybe I misunderstood you. On the wetlands that's currently there, can you, once it's zoned differently, if it is zoned differently, will them wetlands go away ever? Can you rezone it? Can you chop it down at any
Let me start.
other date in the future?
Ma'am, and I'll attempt to start, and Mr. Romans has some expertise in this area too. It not only for wetlands, but just for the trees that are there, we do not have intention to do anything to those, just to leave them as.
I understand you don't,
Yeah,
but
but,
whoever buys that.
Right.
You're exactly right. But right now, there's less restrictions on it as agricultural than there would be if it becomes industrial or commercial property. The restrictions or enforceability of things that take place on wetlands are much more restrictive on industrial or commercials. They're better protected if the zoning change happens than if it's farmland. If farmlands, they could pretty much come in and take away, they have a better chance of taking away the wetlands if they exist there with no mitigation than if it was zoned industrial or commercial. Then they're very, very cautiously regulated. But for agricultural, they are not. So it is much harder to deal with the wetlands if you're going to try to mitigate them if it's zoned anything but agricultural. So,
Okay.
yeah, you would, if you were out of the wetlands, you would be more protected with the zoning change than without it.
Okay, say for instance, this did go through and whoever bought that, they wanted to get rid of the wetlands.
Mhm.
Where would they come? To the zoning?
No,
No.
no, they
Where
would
would they
go,
go?
they
How
go-
would we find out? As a
that is
citizen?
regulated by the Army Corps.
You would have to, if I could, one, you would have to, it is listed on the US wetland inventory as wooded wetlands. However, I live by Hallschild. I have a small pond. That's probably listed as a wet. I mean, the reality is, even though it's listed, if someone expert would have to come out and delineate whether those truly are wetlands. And if they are, the Army Corps is the decider, and you would need and mitigating is extremely difficult. We did mitigation projects, one on Wynn and one on Stadium, okay? And it was difficult. When you mitigate a wetland, you have to provide for a linear, for a stream, it's 1.5 to 1. So whatever you take out, you got to provide 50% more.
Yeah, I read up. on
Wooded wetlands is 2.5, okay? And it's woods that you're putting in, so it's extremely expensive. It's and personally, those woods there are already a natural buffer from the industrial area.
Exactly.
I would not want those to disappear. I'm just saying, that's my viewpoint. But the zoning change is just a zoning change. What you do with wooded wetlands will be a permit before the Army Corps.
Okay, and then I have another question on the Wynn Road and the truck route. My boyfriend has lived there for over 25 years. They told him back in the day when he moved out there that they would repave that at least every 5 years. It has not yet been repaved.
Yeah.
It's been over 25 years now.
Well, the section of Wynn, from Corduroy to Cedar Point, we just was awarded a grant to pave that section as well
Okay.
as Corduroy from Wynn to Stadium, just so you know.
Okay,
All right, but when we did our sewer work and everything else that we were doing, with what we put in, we thought the EDA grant would pay for paving Wynn, and it didn't. We thought we could
I
get it.
talked to you about
And
that.
so then it's like, we knew we had to get into the road program sooner or later, but then this TIP grant popped up and we applied for it. So that's what happened.
And then my last question, I did have 3, I'm sorry. On this master plan for the last 20 years, 25 years?
Approximately 20 years.
Okay, I've lived here all my life in Oregon, in the Bay Shore Wynn Road area. I never heard about the master plan until we came to a meeting 2-3 years ago. You can't find that anywhere on the website. And when you do come in to build a new home, why doesn't the zoning committee have a copy of it or even post it on the wall saying, you might want to look at the master plan before you build a $300,000 house?
Yeah.
I would say if you did a tally or a vote, I would say over 3/4 of the residents of Oregon does not know about this master plan.
Well,
So I think it needs
I
to
would
be,
guarantee that. I'd put my money on that too.
Okay.
I would guarantee that.
and I would think
Whether it's
people would
apathy or
like to
whether
know
it's-
about the master plan. They
Yeah.
might be for it.
Well, ma'am, just when we were developing those plans, I was here 2 different times when they did. And we had, every time it was posted in the paper and.
Who gets the paper
what-
anymore?
Well, this is years ago. I'm just saying what happened. We begged people to come out. There were, 5 people show up once in a while, sometimes none. We couldn't get people to have any interest in coming out. it was very difficult.
I facilitated the meetings and it was a good year's process. Most of the people that attended were from the east side of Oregon,
Yeah.
which, it's undeveloped. So they had a higher interest. The time, Noel Graham subdivision, that was a big debate. And, there were different cliques of people coming to chime in on it. It was well known at the time, but you're right. I would think it'd be on our
Somewhere, when you're
website.
gonna build a house.
Yeah, I
mean,
totally agree.
I think it should be brought to your
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah.
At
We
least so
try,
they
we
know
do,
about
we
it.
do try. We do, it's not like we're keeping a secret. And we're getting better at, having, IT people involved to try to get our message
Have you
out
gone
a
to the
lot better.
zoning board?
What's that?
Have you gone into zoning? They don't tell you much of anything. Just to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Okay.
Right. One of the things that was touched on was like the tax code or why we need money. Sir, you in the front row, you brought up about the 2.25 payroll income tax. That is our lifeline here. People used to say that, well, these parcels could all develop as residential. Residential development in the city is a liability to the city. The taxes that we get from your property tax is approximately 4.5% of what you pay. So if you were counting on the income if we were counting on the income that you pay in your property tax, it doesn't even pay for your garbage pickup. And so all your other services, police, fire, the recreation, snow removal, your garbage pickup, all that comes from the 2.25 payroll income tax. It is paid by everyone who works in the city. And the only tax we get if you live in the city but do not work in the city, like my wife works in Waterville, they pay 2%, and we have 2.25. She has to pay an additional 0.25% to the city of Oregon. So our city's lifeline is the payroll income tax. So we develop residentially at a greater rate than we do industrially and commercially. The subsidy that each of you are receiving right now will be watered down. So every house that's added takes away a little of the subsidy that each of you get to pay for your city services. So we try to grow in a similar rate. As we increase residentially, we have to increase our industrial and retail and commercial bases. Otherwise, we'll be left with having to come up with the difference of that money, and there's only one other way to get it. If we aren't receiving it in that 2.25 payroll, would be to put levies on and raise taxes. So we're faced with the balancing act that we have to do. And we're an industrial-based city. Retail is very difficult for us. We are doing everything we can to subsidize our retail development on Navarre Avenue, and we're making real strides that will develop. It just takes us a lot longer than with the traffic that's in the Perrysburg area, in an area where they are really a retail-based city, and they do retail well there. We don't have the density or the amount of traffic flow to make our retail work without subsidies that we found innovative ways to do. So we're left at, whether we want to face it or not, we're really an industrial-based city that is our lifeline to making our city work. And we do, like I said, we try to do a balancing act to impact as few people as possible. And if they are going to be impacted, we try to address it in the best manner we can to make it work. We don't have that. There's no magic wand. There's no money trees. Our money tree is this industrial base right here. That's our money tree. And we have to make it work. And we worry every time there's a threat, especially the TRC refinery has 2 times now, it's come very close to closing. That closes. We have to be ready to have other revenue sources. Otherwise, we're gonna face some real issues at providing city services.
Can I reply?
Sure.
So a little bit of that was a weight of words fallacy. You went on and on and on.
like
which
to
I
know
don't
what the fallacy
appreciate.
is.
You also conflated apparently property taxes and income tax, which I did not speak to property taxes at all.
What's that?
I did not speak to property
All right.
taxes at all. Um, what I was talking about as far as income taxes is reduce the full 2.25 credit that is given to Oregon citizens that work outside of Oregon. They have to pay an additional 1% or whatever you want to set it as. And I realize that politically that is hanging yourself. But
Not only politically, you would lose anybody that's gonna live here. I got 3 kids. They wouldn't stay here if they have to pay an extra 2.25%.
I'm saying 1%. I paid an extra 1% to live in Walbridge. That was part of living in Walbridge. If your city has the culture, the city services, the infrastructure, that it is a destination to live in, people will live there. And if you don't think Oregon currently is in that position, then I don't see how adding more advanced manufacturing and more industry is going to help draw anyone else here, because both of those are sources of pollution. We can stay in the past and stay industrial based, or we can start looking towards the future. Yes, BP Husky or whatever it's called now is going to close someday. Adding more manufacturing right now isn't really a hedge against it closing, because city budgets will rise to meet the new income from the new industry and advanced manufacturing. And when we lose BP or Toledo Refinery, we're still going to be in the same situation because we've already raised our spending to match the new income that might potentially come from this. So don't play the game of saying we need to hedge our bets against the future, because there's no one that's going to be putting this money away and saving it for a rainy day. We know that doesn't happen at local government level. These houses have been here between 100 years and a year or two. This is a very small amount of acreage that you guys are looking to move into advanced manufacturing and commercial industry. You're squeezing every last drop out of this quote unquote industrial zone that is west of Wynn and north of Seaman or north of Corduroy. You don't have to squeeze every drop out of it. People have been living here for decades. They've been living next to ag fields. Ag fields that are some of the most productive acre by acre anywhere on earth. It doesn't need to be turned into big metal boxes.
Mr. Mazur, did you have a comment? Or do you want to wait? Sure. Okay.
Hello. I'm Dave Corey, 5411 Corduroy. I'm down the road a ways. My father is south of, he's 4714. So my concern is if you're trying to create tax revenue, we just built a multi-million-dollar fire department. You're essentially saying we can't pay for it. That's a problem. That's a big problem, because there's no tax levy that's going to cover, or new infrastructure that's going in that's going to cover TRC, that's going to pay for this fire department. That's a problem. We're spending money before we have the cash in our hand. That's what it seems like. Furthermore, these people, Irene lives in this house. You guys are just basically going to build around her, squeeze her out and wait until she dies. That's another problem. I understand this was part of your major plan. It's not a good one. I'm against it. Sorry.
Anyone else? In response from the panel.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to close the public hearing.
Second.
Any objections? Hearing no objections, the public hearing is closed. Floor is open for discussion by the panel. Mr. Mazur, I know this may have started before you were here. And I have had this opinion for a long, long time while I've been on this committee, at least 16 years on this committee. Some preemptive zoning and moving, I think, has been appropriate. When we did issue the master plan, I thought it was appropriate at that time to have city council accept the master plan and to move at that point in time with the recommendation that the zoning be moved closer, if not completely adopted, even back then. And we've had that master plan for a long period of time, though that would have been a tough political pill to probably swallow. My personal opinion is I think we should have done that a long, long time ago. One, it would have given the opportunity that we wouldn't be here. And I'm not saying this has been a bad thing. I think this is a great thing for citizens to be able to voice their opinions, but it seems as though we are here every time we have a zoning change. It's just a different group of you in the audience. When we have a requested zoning change on the corner of Norden and Corduroy, we have 50 people in the audience. They just happen to be a different 50 people because they're the ones that live right around that. When we have a zoning change for something over in the Mountain View Park area, we have 50 people, but we tend to have the same arguments and the same things that we go through. And that's the difficulty of it. I know this affects all of you that are in this room tonight. We are looking at it as fellow tax-paying citizens as to what we do. I think it would have avoided some of those things way back when. It would have also brought in line with the handful of people who said, I didn't know this was coming and I didn't know this was here. Had we adopted the master plan 15 years ago, well, it was adopted, but it wasn't formally changed to say the zoning is now this compared to that. If we could have done that, something I advocated for long ago, I'm not saying that we do that. We can't do that tonight. I'm not saying council does that tonight, but I would have liked to have seen that happen long ago because I think it would have given notice to the 5 houses that we now have on Wynn Road. It would have given notice to the woman in the back whose, house was affected or bought in this community. And I'm glad that you did buy in this community. But I think those would have been an avenue of where we could have gone even back then. And that's just my personal opinion. I like to plan for the future. I like to know what's coming in the future. I've been here for 29 years since the day I got married. I moved in with my wife into Oregon, and I'm not your typical Oregon resident. Neither my wife nor I were born and raised here. We're not Clay graduates. We chose to be here. We've loved it. Our kids are Clay graduates, and we have loved living in the city of Oregon. And so have been here for all those years trying to make this a better place. And so I do hear your arguments regardless of my vote. My vote's not going to go very far after tonight. The big vote is going to be on December 19th, and that's who you'll have to deal with. So that's just my own personal opinion tonight. So thank you. Mary, you're awful quiet tonight.
I am, but I was an advocator of this from the time we purchased the Marge Steel property. if I don't hear any other discussion, I am going to move for passage of Z 814 of 22. With the intent, we'll do everything we can to do this to impact the area as positively as we can. And we don't know. We all have a bit of a fear of the unknown. But like I said, vacant property is unknown, so there is a fear there. And we'll do our best to try to get this developed in as positive of a manner with the most buffering and the least impact to the neighbors. And so I do move for passage of Z 814 of 22.
Thank you, Mayor.
Second.
Was that Mr. Oliver or Mr. Briesler? Okay, I thought it was his voice, but I saw your lips move. Roll, please.
Mayor Safarian?
Yes.
Mr. Olive?
Yes.
Mr. Brieslar?
Yes.
Chairman Winkowski?
Yes. Mr. Orovitz is not present. That's another issue that I want you to think about.
Make a motion to close the meeting
Second.
without objection.
Second.
Hearing no objection, the meeting is hereby closed. Thank you, everyone, for showing up and giving us your opinion. December 19th. I don't know if it's in the, it's not in the charter, but we need to have a sixth, so that if somebody's not here.
I wanted